Most of the programming on Batavia Access Television is produced by local residents like you. The views and opinions expressed are not necessarily those of BATV and its affiliates. Anyone interested in becoming a BATV volunteer producer or submitting a program to be cablecast should contact BATV at 630-937-5413 or info@mybatv.com.
Hi everybody, it's a little crowded today. Woo! Yeah. Also, I want to warn, some of you are sitting near some very expensive glass artwork over there on my left. Stay away from it. Take a look at the price tag. You won't want to sit anywhere near it. So just be careful. And there's a dress in the center that kind of spreads out too. If you take care around that, we'd appreciate it. Okay, my name is Kevin Moriarty, and I'd like to welcome you to Waterline Writers. Our events are for writers and those who love the written word. We gather here in this beautiful art gallery to hear several writers read their original creative work from all styles and all genres. If you're a writer, you can submit your published or not yet published work. You'll find instructions on our website at waterlinewriters.org. Our November and December events are pretty full, but send your submissions for January through May. Don't dawdle, so get going on that. In addition to our featured writers, tonight we're going to have an open mic after our main event. There's a 5-minute limit. If you did not get a chance to sign up for the open mic when you walked in, there's a clipboard on the counter, and you can sign up at the break too, if you want to read tonight. We suggested a $5 donation at the door, and we really appreciate your generosity. The proceeds are going to go to the writers, to Water Street Studios, and to some special projects that we have yet to announce. And tonight, if you buy a book from one of our authors, we'll refund your $5 donation, okay? We are going to have a little talk from Rita about Water Street Studios. Rita, are you in the house? Ah, there she is. Rita, please.
I have my papers in order. Hi, my name is Rita Grenzi. I am the gallery manager here at Water Street Studios, and I am taking that title as of today. I've been a longtime resident here at Water Street, not since it's first opened, but from the second year on, I've been affiliated with Water Street Studios, first and foremost as an artist and a resident, but also as someone who has used this fabulous facility as a platform to get things done, to have my art career move forward and to help others move their careers forward. At least that's what I'm hoping. We are really excited to have Waterline writers with us for another season. We feel that they're a huge part of our Water Street Studios family. It's a wonderful relationship that we're building with them. We hope that you all benefit from it too. I wanted to share with you a little bit of what's happening here at Water Street. We've had a number of changes. We feel like we're going from that exciting, high energy startup phase to the professional stage of our lives. We're kind of leaving our adolescence and becoming young adults. Hopefully someday we'll be mature and we'll just be this a cornerstone of the community, and we're working very hard to get there. There is some new leadership here, and I hope that you will come back when it's not a Waterline event, take a good look at the art, meet the people that are involved here, from the residents to the people taking classes to those teaching to those behind the counter. Everyone that's here is here because they love this place and love what it does for our broader community. I wanted to share with you a couple of things that are happening really soon. First and foremost, the show in this gallery, it's Ensemble. We have an annual fundraiser called Ensemble. The evening is a gala event. So up till now, it's involved a fashion show and an art exhibit. The work in this show was chosen specifically for the theme Avenue and Passage. One of the artists came from Davenport, Iowa. He's affiliated with the Figge Art Museum, teaches at Black Hawk College. He's a wonderful, funny man. He made these beautiful kind of pop culture and billboard-inspired large-scale paintings on the back wall. Other artists are local artists right here from Batavia, Aurora. Please take some time to look at the work. There's a lot of love that went into preparing this show. These artists will be giving an artist talk. If you like to hear writers talk about their work, it's fun to hear artists try to articulate what they've made because words are not our forte. This is what we do. We don't do the talking part. So we will be having an artist talk a week from today on the 26th from 11 to 1 right here in this gallery. We'll have bagels and coffee. All are welcome to join us. The 5th anniversary show, the 5th anniversary of being in this space, opens on November 14th. We are honored to have the prestigious Monique Malash as our guest juror. She picked work from 18 artists. It looks to be a really strong and very different show for us. We hope you'll come see that. Upstairs, we have the Kane County Chronicle Gallery. It's our smaller gallery for emerging artists and emerging curators. The show that is currently up is the Apocalypse Salon, and it was put together by our very own Kim Fredericks. Some of you know Kim. Her parents are here. Kim has been very active in this community. She set up our entire print lab up in St. Charles. She's young, she's dynamite, and we need to support her and support artists like her that are really trying to get their careers started. Our School of Art, the new booklet is coming out in a couple weeks. You can register for current classes. You can register here at the desk. I'm sure Patty has some booklets there. We have classes for kids. We have classes for adults. We have workshops coming up from nationally known encaustic artists. We have a lot going on that could interest all of you, whether you're a hobbyist or an advanced artist. We have access programs in ceramics, printing, and metals. So if you have a little bit of skill and just need a place to come make your work, we hope to be that venue. And we have studios for rent. We have just started a new program of shared studios for painters, and upon the recommendation of Kevin and Ann, we decided to make a shared space for writers. We have room for 3 writers to share a studio. You would each get your own key, have 24/7 access. We can fit 3 desks, 3 chairs in there. You can configure it however you want that would work for you, but only one of you can be there by yourself until the other 2 come in. So if you're interested in having a writing space, like a writing nook here at Water Street Studios, we'd be very happy to house you. Lastly, we are proud to announce that one of our really active members, Catherine Kratzer, she's been a resident and an activist in this community. She founded our Art Flow outreach program that has art programs at Batavia Apartments, at Lazarus House. They've worked with Hesed House. They're working with some of the public schools here. She's been nominated as a Kane County Woman of Distinction, and we are very proud that she is one of those women deserving that honor. So please join us in congratulating her. I don't think she's here tonight, but I will let her know that you all know about it. Come to the banquet. It's on Thursday, right? Thursday? That's all. Thank you. Welcome to your new season. We're glad to have you here, and I hope to see you around.
Thanks, Rita. Okay, just a couple more things. A heads up. We are recording tonight's event for broadcast on BATV, so everybody please behave yourselves. You can check our website, waterlinewriters.org, later for the show times once they tell us when that's going to be. Now, you guys are in for a big treat tonight. I have to be the audio-visual nerd tonight, so Ann Vague, the founder of Waterline Writers, is going to announce the writers tonight. So Ann, please come on up.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to see such a big crowd here tonight. We're glad to be back. I'm going to introduce Bruce Steinberg, Randy Martin, and Erica Denker real quickly here before we view the film. Can you hear me okay? Is this booming? Because it's booming here. Okay. So good? Okay. Our first writer is Bruce Steinberg. And he's the author of 4 novels, and he's written and co-produced a stage play with a successful run at Naperville's Center Stage Theater, edited and illustrated Allen's Rocket, a first chapter book authored and published by his son, and he is also a columnist with Silent Sports Magazine. He adds that he's happily married and will stay that way if we include it in his bio. And he wrote the excerpt we're about to see, and it was filmed by Randy Martin. And since retiring from 39 years of teaching at Northern Illinois University, Randy has worked on writing and filmmaking, including a documentary on writers' groups. His wife, Danute Docuviene, is the creative force behind it. Erica Denker stars in this film. Erica is a 12-year-old 7th grader from St. Charles. She has performed in local theater productions since age 7. She loves to read, ride her bike, dance, and play the viola, and to watch Gravity Falls with friends. She says that the Cheryl's Only Tunnel, which is the name of the excerpt, the Cheryl's Only Tunnel has been a great experience, and collaborating with Bruce and Randy has been a pleasure and an honor. In the film you're about to see, Erica Denker performs a monologue titled The Cheryl's Only Tunnel. And if anybody has trouble seeing, feel free to just get up and move closer. I know for the film portion, it's important to see the film, so feel free to kind of move closer. So, filmed by Randy Martin and Danute Dacuviene and edited by Randy Martin, The Cheryl's Only Tunnel was selected by Erica from Bruce Steinberg's novel, The Widow's Son. What is asked of all of you here this evening is just to imagine yourselves as children in the aftermath of the blizzard of 1967.
Hi, I'm Erica Denker, and I was the actress in The Widow's Son, Cheryl's Only Tunnel monologue. What you're going to see is pretty much if you imagine a family, and there's been a death in the family, and so the family is heartbroken, they've been torn apart. And imagine all the pressure on one kid, the oldest kid in the family, but they're still only like 11 or 12 years old, and they have to put the whole family back together again. That's pretty much what this whole monologue and this whole story is about. When the weathermen say it snowed 23 inches at O'Hare Airport, that doesn't matter much. On my street, with all the wind, the snow piled up over 8 feet. During the last few days, Cheryl's been tunneling. It begins at the back of the house, beside a large dumping of dugout snow, and a stick, holding a cardboard sign that says, Cheryl's Only. I kneel down and enter the tunnel made for Cheryl's Only. Although there's only one way to crawl, I'm losing sense of where I am. It's the whiteness around me, my breathing echoing inside. The tunnel couldn't be all that long, but it seems to take forever for me to reach her at the end. Hopefully there's room for 2, just in case there could be more than one Cheryl in this world. I have my doubts. I hear you, she says. You're not allowed in here. Her voice sounds convinced that sooner or later she would be found out. We both know how snoopy David is, and she looks surprised when I pull my parka hood and Dad's goggles off. Hello, I say. Are you Cheryl? Maybe I am. It's a neat tunnel. Other kids helped me build it. Where are they? They're not allowed in. They're not Cheryl's. Did you tell them that before they helped you build it? Cheryl shakes her head. All her curls fill with millions of tiny snow crystals, and her motion makes many of them fly out, float for a second, then fall. That doesn't seem fair, I say. She glares at me. I should know better about fairness. A picture of 3 astronauts is poked into the wall with a small pencil. I know who they are without looking too close. Astronauts Grissom, White, Chafee. Beside them is a picture of their burned-out Apollo space capsule. Is Mom still taking you to see the psychologist? Cheryl clenches her jaw tight. Is it doing any good? She shakes her head, and more snow crystals fly away from her curls. I lean into her shoulder. She stutters when she exhales, as though she's trying to keep from crying. Cheryl, will you tell me one thing, just one thing about what's happened to you since Dad died? Snow crystals brush against my cheek. I try again. I'm not a psychologist. I won't blab. I'll get up and leave this tunnel right now, if you say so, for good. But please tell me one thing. After all this time, will you please tell me one thing? Anything. Cheryl's stare moves to follow a tear falling down my cheek. And I wonder how that one tear, after all these months of shutting down, finally worked its way out. I was supposed to go with Dad to Atlanta, Cheryl says, and she lowers her head to her hands. It was a school day. You couldn't have gone with him. He asked me, and I could have gone, says Daddy's little girl. She tied Dad up in knots with her voice, and her smile, and her tears. She's right, I know. Dad would have taken her if she really wanted to go. There's nothing Mom could have done to stop it, even on a school day. I wait for Cheryl to raise her head. When she does, I see her face is flush and hot. Why didn't you go? I say, and the tears pour out of her. She tells me like a rat-a-tat-tat, 'cause he let David help him in the basement, not me. And then he asked you to use the drill with him, not me. And then he asked me to go with. I told him to go away. Go away was the last thing I said to Dad. You didn't kill Dad. All I had to do was make him stop for one bathroom. The whole thing would have been different. What if Dave or I went with Dad? We could have stopped it too. But he asked me. And I said no, because I was being... She leans her head back and sags, her tears falling unwiped. I can't say Cheryl's got me under her control. Not the way she had Dad. But that doesn't mean I can't do what Dad would do right now. I put my arm over her shoulders. You look like an angel, I tell her. Like Dad often told her. Like he would if he were alive today. You didn't know, I say. You had no way of knowing. It's not your fault. Her little body flutters, fills her parka, then deflates. She pinches the picture of the astronauts and tugs it off the snow wall. She brings it close to her face, and her eyes twitch back and forth. Dead astronauts, I say. Walter Cronkite cried on TV. Cheryl says more thoughtfully, dead fathers. She drops the picture. Every day, I feel like I'm the only one. For all these months since Dad died, it's my heart I've heard beating in my chest. They're my eyes watching the house fall apart, and Mom falling apart with it. I see the rooms without my father, just the pictures of him, looking more distant and of no use to me except to bring my hearts pounding to my ears. I've lost him. My father. With my arm over her shoulders, squeezing, I feel like I'm soothing my own feelings. We cry together. David scampers about over our heads. His voice booms into the tunnel. Hey, where are you guys? The snow roof creaks and pops and sends a pile of snow down on our heads. along with one of David's legs. We grab his leg and bite, and David wiggles hard, yelling at us to stop. The snow roof and David fall on us now. All I hear is Cheryl's laughter, pounding into the air, loud enough to reach the entire length of our street. Everything seems to stop, to listen to the collapse of the Cheryl's Only tunnel.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I love
Okay, 3 times. Very good.
I'm Bruce Steinberg. I'm the author of The Little Sun and the person who knew that Erica Danker would do a great job. Normally writers get to say something before we start, and I'd like to thank Ann and Kevin. You have no idea how much they helped us, and Water Street for this great venue. A lot goes into a film. What you saw was one take, 4 cameras, and that's Randy right there who did a fabulous job, painstaking job putting it all together. And his wife, Danute Dokufiene, right in the back. Raise your hand, Danute. If I can brag a little bit, the piano playing, that was my son, Alan. Where are you, Alan? He composed it and he played it. And along with her mom and dad and grandparents and some friends, one take Erica Danker. Could you stand up, Erica? There she is. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
All right. While Kevin and Nick are moving the screen, I'm going to just talk to you about the drop-in class that I'm hosting here at Water Street Studios. On every Sunday when we're not having Waterline writers, you can come at the same time, 7 o'clock, 7 to 9, and we're going to do some writing in the gallery. And it's like half an hour of discussion about different pieces of art that are currently in the gallery and using them to give us some ideas about our writing, which I think is kind of a unique concept. But we look at all different kinds of things like use of light, the intentionality, the kind of the scope of the painting, even like the framing of it, and then talk about our writing in those terms. And we usually come up, we each have different insights or different ways of looking at our writing. It's a $5 suggested donation, but you can just just drop in writing time. You don't have to sign up ahead of time or anything. Is it fun?
Fun. Very fun.
All right. And then for about an hour then, after we talk about things, we just sit in here and write quietly and then share if we want to after that. All right, our next writer, are we set here? We're set, right? Okay, our next writer is Jennifer DeBose, and she's going to kick off what I'm calling Use Your Words. Each month, we're going to ask someone to, we're going to look for somebody whose writing enlightens us, informs us, and educates us. And I think that I've read a lot of Jennifer's columns, and she really does a good job of that kind of writing. Jennifer DeBose is the author of the column Tales from the Motherhood, which has been published every Saturday in the Kane County Chronicle since May 2009. She also wrote Parenting Isn't for Sissies, which appeared monthly in Chicago Parent Magazine from 2007 to 2012, and won the Bronze Award from Parenting Publications of America in 2008. She hopes to find an agent soon to help peddle her picture books for children and to finally finish writing the novel she started several years ago. A licensed marriage and family therapist, Jennifer also enjoys helping others to make meaning out of their own stories. And if you look at the back of your program, you'll see a photo And I'm sorry if we ran out. Please look on someone else's program. There's a little photo on the back that goes along with what she's reading. Jennifer DeBose, come on up. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. The first column I'm going to read was published this August in the Kane County Chronicle. And as you noticed from the photograph on the back, that's what inspired this column. I was out school shopping with my kids when I spotted a Nike t-shirt bearing the slogan, prominently displayed on a mannequin near the entrance to the Dick's Sporting Goods store in Geneva. Breaking ankles, shattering dreams is the slogan in case you can't read it on the shirt. My teenagers groaned and quickly vanished while I waited to speak to Diane, the manager on duty. I told her that I found the message disturbing and asked her what she thought of it. She admitted that she hadn't really, so I explained to her my belief that messages like this one promote violence on the playing field and elsewhere. I shared that I've heard parents and kids say similar things, even at the lesser competitive recreational level of soccer. "Kick her in the knees," someone shouted during one memorable, muddy, and otherwise miserable rec soccer game 3.5 years ago. In disbelief, I whipped my head around to see who'd issued such a directive. The mom of one of my daughter's teammates? For real? Yep. Yeah, it was. I like her kid, but I don't like what she said. How old were these girls? 9, 10 at most? I couldn't believe my ears. And then she said it again. What little kid, when she suits up to play a game, ever considers the possibility that she might deliberately be assaulted on the field? When a couple of the girls actually chimed in with the kicker in the knees thing, I snapped to attention and hushed them with a quiet, "Oh, come on now, let's be sweet." Kids are so impressionable. It's frightening to think that an attitude like this one can mushroom so quickly. Think a slogan on a t-shirt is any less powerful? As for Diane, the Dick's manager, she happily agreed to pass my concerns on to Dick's upper management. To her credit, she also volunteered that she would take the shirt right off the mannequin. If only every other retailer would just do it. I've noticed in all of my years as a soccer mom that some kids play dirty. Some coaches play dirty too, though not our own, thank goodness. I know at least a couple of kids whose athletic careers have been sidelined. Some have even been hospitalized by what I believe are the effects of this attitude. And I've had enough. It's got to stop. But it won't unless each of us does our own part and chips away at it. In my opinion, if we passively accept this attitude and don't speak up when we encounter it, we become part of the problem. "Why do you have to be so soft?" my son asked when I returned to the car after my chat with Diane. "Because I care about you and Holly and every other child who just wants to play a game," I replied. Accidents and injuries happen, of course, but we're talking about whether or not it's okay to condone and, in fact, promote the use of violence on the field or anywhere else. What kind of society do we want for our children? When I posted this picture and aired my concerns on Facebook, my friends were shocked, including one whose son had been hospitalized after the opposing high school football coach allegedly told his players to, quote unquote, get him out of the game. I can't even imagine. I'm still surprised. One of this coach's players apparently shared a mutual friend with her son who, mentioned that this happened, that this comment was made. This mom also pointed out that the break and ankle sentiment displayed on the Nike shirt is actually common basketball parlance, which was news to me, but still. The expression break and ankles, I'm told, is commonly used to refer to one's outstanding moves on the basketball court that can theoretically lead to one's opponents breaking their ankles in their efforts to obtain control of the ball. But that defense is indefensible if you ask me. This slogan can easily be misunderstood by those unfamiliar with its origins. Besides, whatever happened to Nike's Just Do It campaign? Anyhow, this positive message no doubt inspired millions to get out there and enjoy moving their bodies and managed to sell plenty of t-shirts too, without also inspiring people to tear each other down, literally or figuratively. What will you do when you see this shirt? Will you speak up? And will you make the calls? By the way, I learned just this week that there's another unfortunate t-shirt out there. This one's sold by Target and Forever 21 stores that bears the slogan, "You can't sit with us." Apparently it's from the movie Mean Girls, but there's really no defense for that, I don't think. My own calls about the Nike shirt netted this response. Customer service representatives at Dick's and Nike noted my concerns, as did media relations personnel from both companies. Will one woman's calls make a difference? Even if they think people will get that it's a basketball reference, perhaps it will matter to them that some might think they're encouraging people to celebrate their opponent's misfortune and even their injuries while they succeed at the game. Perhaps it will also matter to them that folks like me actually also wonder if they mean to advocate the use of excessive force on the court. Whatever their motivation to do it, I'd love to see these companies at least exhibit some social responsibility and take these shirts off the shelves altogether. In the meantime, I'm voting with my pocketbook. So far, Dick's gets my vote, because when I called Diane's supervisor to praise her responsiveness and swift action in taking the t-shirt right off the mannequin, he volunteered before he knew my name or my affiliation with the Chronicle or that I might write about it, you know. We don't want to offend, he said. It doesn't matter whether it's one person or a million. You're a loyal customer. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. Well, yes, it's true. My debit card has gotten quite a workout at Dick's over the years. You keep up this approach to customer service, and yep, I'll stay a fan. Okay, the second column I want to read was published a couple of years ago, June of 2012, and following the Mid-American Canoe and Kayak race that my son and I competed in. I picked up some new life preservers the night before the Mid-American Canoe and Kayak race on the Fox River a couple of years ago. In years past, my son Noah and I had always rented equipment for the race, including a metal canoe, but this time we planned to run the river in our own beater canoe, a lighter fiberglass bargain we just picked up at a yard sale. We weren't sure it was seaworthy, but true to form, we figured we'd bang it. Hey, let's do this like every year, okay? I suggested the morning of our third race. Yeah, Noah said, it can even become a family reunion thing. We were pumped. But then race organizers enlightened us and said that the Fox had gruesomely low water levels and cautioned that the route would require lots of maneuvering to avoid the shallow rocky areas and exposed shoals. The year before, the river level on race day had been 1,600 cubic feet per second, but this year, gruesomely low, it was only 500. Oh, we got this, we thought. And in fact, not only would we do it, Noah and I decided we'd try for a medal. But you forgot to train, my daughter said. True. Plus, Noah had a broken finger, so we pinned our hopes on the power of carbo loading. As it turned out, though, we needed more than carbs. We needed a better boat. Your boat's seen better days, a race official commented as he guided our blue canoe into place at the starting line. Suddenly, I felt a rush of protective pride as one of my favorite picture books came to mind. You know, The Little Engine That Could. Ours is the little boat that could, I quipped. My then 13-year-old winced and shook his head. Mom, really? A few moments later, though, after the race had begun and we'd spun around backwards for the third time and I fell out, our canoe lost some of her charm. We were baffled. We'd stayed afloat and paddled that 6 miles from Batavia to Aurora without incident and without taking on even 1 ounce of water, 2 years in a row. We were baffled. Mom, this has never happened before, Noah said. Our canoe would need an exorcism to get to the finish line, never mind a medal. The water level was so low that we were out of it more than we were in it. When it did move, it wanted to go backward down the river, so we decided we should just stop fighting it and each other and just let it. Yes, we proudly planned to hit the finish line like the bozos we are, backward, and actually managed to paddle this way for about half a mile, which was quite fun, I admit. Eventually, we discovered why our boat preferred going backwards, why Noah had so little legroom in the front of the boat, and why we'd gotten so many funny looks from the other paddlers. It seems we mistook the front of the canoe for the back. Who does that? And in my defense, I didn't put the canoe in that position, right? One of the guys who was in charge did, so yeah. The looks of confusion on the other paddlers' faces were priceless and made us laugh even harder. So yeah, after this revelation, we occasionally paddled in sync and straight albeit backwards. But then the water level dipped ever lower and sinking seemed ever more inevitable. "Mom, even the fish are laughing at us," Noah lamented, as yet another fish jumped out of our way right over the boat as we dragged our beleaguered boat off yet another pile of river rubble. "I want to give up," he moaned, about a mile from the finish. "Me too. I want nothing more to get out of this than to get out of this dang boat," I admitted. "So the sooner," I said damn, but I couldn't print that. "So the sooner we get to the finish line, the sooner we can ditch it," I said, paddling faster, but getting nowhere. I was determined to finish the race with the boat. We'd already decided we'd leave it next to the finish line with a free sign dangling from one of the rusty nails that held it together, but it had taken on so much water from all of our falling out and scrambling back in that it had become an almost immovable bathtub. At one point, 2 young boys actually stopped to help us bail water out of our boat. I keep calling it a boat, but it's kind of an overstatement. Generously sacrificing precious seconds in their own medal quest. But every time we tipped water out, more came back in. They balked when I encouraged them to go on without us. "Oh, it's okay, this is fun," one boy said. Okay. I love a kid with that spirit. A few moments later, Noah held up his splinted, broken finger. "Mom, I wasn't supposed to get this wet." And we laughed so hard we just couldn't drag the canoe another inch. We collapsed back into our tub and just giggled. By this time, I had a huge scrape on my thigh and bruises on my shins, and our hands were shredded from the sharp edges of this canoe. I worried we might twist our ankles trying to drag it into deeper water or get tetanus, from the rusty nails poking out of it, for Pete's sake. What kind of mother risks that? So finally, I agreed with Noah. We were done. Like I had much choice, given that he'd already abandoned ship and was halfway to shore. We scrambled. It's so weird. Has anyone ever been in the middle of the Fox when there's like no water in it and you can walk across it? It's very strange. Okay. We scrambled up the banks and walked the last half mile down the bike path, paddles in hand, sporting our spiffy new life preservers, as several cyclists did double takes. We just grinned. "I didn't want to litter," I said to the race officials when we finally reached the finish line, but we had no other choice. Just then a woman approached and mentioned that she'd received several alarming reports of an empty canoe. "Yeah, people will wonder where the bodies are," I said. So he made an announcement that the paddlers were okay, the boat not so much. I recall that as we helplessly drifted into the limbs of yet another fallen tree, an older gentleman watching from the banks yelled, "You got suckered into this, right, Mom?" "No, but he was," I confessed, recalling how I'd first talked Noah into racing with me 2 years before. It wasn't actually a hard sell, but, it was my idea. After this debacle, I knew I'd have my work cut out for me if I ever hoped to get him back into another canoe. And as we watched the kayakers glide effortlessly down the river, we fantasized about kayaking the next year instead. I'm sad we'll never medal while we're together in the same boat, but maybe it's time he steers his own. As for our little boat that couldn't, well, it seems no one ever found it after the water rose. The shipwreck is probably still moored on the floor of the Fox. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer DeBose. Our next writer, before we take a break, is Jerry Suter. He's read here several times before, and we're happy to have him back. Jerry Suter is the full-time author of 55 traditionally published books. He has worked as an art teacher, officer for the Arizona State Guard and Detective Agency, rifle instructor, seaman in the U.S. Merchant Marine, and Chicago Tribune photographer. And I think that's really only a few of his previous titles. His creative experience as an international photojournalist, filmmaker, and award-winning video director, producer, and writer has been extensive. His current platforms are U.S. history, military history, fine arts, biography, computers, auto racing, and memoir. Jerry Suter, please come up.
Hello. You hear me all right? Good. Okay. This novel that I'm going to be reading from right now is called The Full Frontal Triptych. Well, you know what a triptych is. It's a 3-paneled painting. And this full-covered triptych covers a period from May 1912 to December 1912 in about 118,000 words, 425 pages. I won't read them all tonight. Set for the most part in the Pines and Oaks Lodge in western New York on the Lake Erie shore, former Chicago Police Captain Jack Holt has married Alice, a wealthy young artist who purchased the lodge from the estate of her mentor and patron. On moving in, they discover a gaggle of rather prominent artists are scheduled to arrive and work there for 6 months, invited by the patron before his untimely death. They will compete for a cash prize and the chance to exhibit at the approaching Armory Show of International Modern Art opening in New York on February 1913. That was the show that changed everything in art in the United States. Alice and Jack must deal with this asylum of toxic eccentrics and preserve their own fragile marriage. This excerpt is a brief flashback visualized by Jack as he explains how he met and courted his beautiful young artist under extremely stressful conditions. Jack's investigations of Alice Brucheska's routines always placed her in Lincoln Park on Saturdays, where she sketched and painted in watercolor. One Saturday morning, he arrived in the park later than usual and took a shortcut to where she usually worked by a small pond. Decked out in his best suit and tie and derby hat, he strode as quickly as a manure-strewn bridle path allowed. Jack saw her as he rounded a blind turn. She saw him at the same time. The artist and the walker both froze in tableau. The courageous former captain stammered, "You might not remember me." "Of course I remember you," she said, her gaze level. "I don't forget Bolsheviks who attack me." She looked around at the bucolic setting that surrounded her bench. "What is my offense today, Mr. Policeman?" "Oh, I was just passing and saw you," Jack lied. "Passing on a bridle path with no horse?" She allowed one eyebrow to lift with the question. "That's a tall story. Is it against the law to sketch riders and their mounts?" She checked the lapel watch pinned to her shirtwaist. "Before noon on Saturdays? Is there a fine? Is your riot patrol on the way?" She leaned forward to look past him at the empty path where it curved south towards city center. Alice laid her sketch pad across her lap and looked up at him from beneath her wide-brimmed sun hat, expecting an answer. Jack's cheeks heated up. He did not know what to do with his hands. His tongue was a dry sliver in his mouth. Any second he feared he would simply fart, drop to the ground, and die. And then he saw the quickly sketched horse and rider on her tablet. His time spent prowling the Art Institute galleries to catch a glimpse of her came to his rescue. That looks like a Degas," he said, bending forward for a closer look. Again, he disarmed her, and again the surprised smile blossomed. "I've been studying his style," she answered, looking down at the Conte crayon drawing and then back up at him. "Who are you?" she demanded. He straightened and whipped off his derby hat. "I'm Jack Holt," he announced. "I was Captain Jack Holt of Chicago Police Department, Miss Brucheska." "Captain Jack Holt?" she asked, dropping her eyes. "Captain Jack? The notorious roughneck? That Captain Jack?" She had barely digested that chunk of knowledge when her cheeks went raspberry red and she clutched her tablet to her breast. "How do you know my name?" "Oh, I'd like to know who has kicked me in the shin," he shot back, staring hotly straight ahead at the trees behind her. "I looked up your booking record and the photograph they made of you the last time you were arrested as a..." notorious suffrage troublemaker and inciter to riot. The color faded from her cheeks as though emptied from a spigot. She turned loose the tablet with one hand and jammed a pointy finger in his direction. It was you I saw in the gallery in front of the large Turner seascape. You hulking great brute, you've been following me, skulking about like a common footpad. Gripping the brim of his derby hat in both hands and still staring at the trees behind her, he blurted out, "Yes, I have." "You admit it?" She looked up and down the deserted path. "I can't even call the police. You are the police. What have I done to be so persecuted? Why are you following me?" To ask you out to dinner," he blurted, and slowly lowered his eyes to hers. A zephyr of wind rustled the leaves on the benches above their heads and sighed against her cheek. He also felt the kiss of the lake breeze. A horse and rider clip-clop past them, bridle chains jingling and English saddle leather squeaking beneath the riders posting in the irons. In a few moments, the path was once again deserted. Only the resumed chortle and cheep of the birds in the trees broke the silence. Jack cleared his throat. "I will present myself to your parents if you wish." "I am of age," she answered. "I step out with whom I wish." "You must know all about me. I'm no stranger to the police in this city." She tilted her head as she regarded him, an unconscious, endearing tell he would come to love. "But I know nothing of you, except your persistence in what I've read about your exploits in the Tribune. I don't know whether to be flattered or terrified." "May I sit?" he asked. I could tell you my story. It's a short one, with a rough start, a violent middle," he paused, swallowing, "and an ending with wonderful possibilities." She barked an amused yelp, immediately putting her fingertips to her lips. "That's a bold line for a gentleman caller." "I'm a stride or two from answering to gentlemen, but I have prospects. I left the force, I've put in my 20, and have commendations to speak to my character. I am no rough cob." 20 years a copper? That eyebrow went up again. She smiled. He smiled and turned his hat brim in his hands. "Yes'm, I joined when I was just shy of 18. That would make you 38, a bit long in the tooth, I know." He disappeared helplessly into those mild, deep amber irises, turned chocolate in the shade. "Nonsense," Alice replied, parrying boldness with boldness. "You're ripe as a Johnny apple, and almost as sweet when you're not kicking people. You were Captain Jack the Bolshevik brute that day, Mr. Policeman, stinking like you just rolled out of a gutter and advancing with menace at me and my suffragette sisters with those," she made a snipping gesture with her fingers, "those great sharp cutters. They were peacefully demanding women's rights to vote." Jack drew himself up and dropped his brows. "You were chained to the Harrison Street Police Headquarters. Nobody could go in or out. I did my duty, and it was you who attacked me." He looked away. "I was just defending myself. As for my offensive appearance, I just bought in a wagon load of filthy, dozing drunks swept from 40 saloons and bawdy houses on the levee. Again, doing my duty, paid for with your papa's taxes." She gave no ground. "You kicked me with that monstrous large boot of yours square in my derriere," she sniffed absently, shifting her seat on the bench as if the phantom pain still existed. She met his questioning gaze. "And later, when Daddy's lawyer posted bond and fetched me from the lockup, you saw me and smiled." He answered softly, "That I did. I watched them tuck you into a limousine. A half a block long it was, and off you went. But not before you returned my tip of the hat with a pie-eating grin of your own." He rumbled a laugh. "I guess I wasted a lot of time. I'm not accustomed to asking out debutantes," she asked. He noticed her hands. "You don't have the hands of a debutante. You have the hands of an artist and the eye of one." He dove deeper into those lash-shaded orbs beneath the brim of her yellow straw hat. eyes of one, he corrected. Alice consulted her lapel watch again, fumbling this time until she could read its tiny numerals. My father's collecting me at the North Avenue entrance to the park in a few minutes. I must go. She began stuffing her artist paraphernalia into a woven shoulder bag. Can I walk you there? He asked, donning his derby and standing, heels together like a raw recruit on parade. Better not, she said, smiling. If Daddy saw you with me, he'd think I'd been arrested again. You do rather stand out. She stood, and the top of her head came to just below the edge of his shoulder. How about meeting me at Berghoff's on Adams Street tonight at 7? No, Daddy's company sold them all their furniture and fittings to the cafe. Their family knew our family in the old country. They'll be happy to give us a table. You just show up. If you don't mind. He cleared his throat and touched his hat brim. I'll make the reservation. On a Saturday? She began. Oh, I forgot. You are Captain Jack. My apologies. I must go. See you at 7. Alice collected her tablet, shoulder bag, parasol, waved, and walked quickly away without looking back. Ex-Captain Jack Holt felt that Lake Michigan breeze drying the sweat on his face as he took stock, still enjoying his good fortune. And then he set off himself. He had to hurry back to his rented room and count out some dollars from the tin box hidden under his bed, make a dinner reservation, visit the Russian baths, buy some fresh collars. The list went on and on as he picked up the pace to a quick march. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. We're going to take a quick break. Before we do that, I want to mention next door on the other side of this wall is a place called Kiss the Sky. It's a really great record shop. They're big into vinyl, so if any of you guys are vinyl fans, that's the place to be. They also do carry CDs. They have a concert on Saturday mornings from 10 to 12. They put out coffee and goodies and have usually acoustic tile music. And the fourth Sunday of the month, they have a little more rowdy music over there. It's a good time. Nice people, too. We're going to take a little break, so if anyone of the writers here wants to see the shared space that's available upstairs, Rita or Rebecca will be happy to take you up there. I'm not quite sure where they are right now. Oh, in the back. There they are. So if anybody wants to take time to go up there and take a peek, do that. You can buy art from the gallery here, of course, but you should probably buy a book from one of our authors first. Remember, we will refund your $5 donation if you buy a book from one of tonight's authors, and we'll start up again in 15 minutes. Thanks. All right, there's another literary event held here in this space. It's called Wordplay. It's mostly for teenagers. Some adults do show up. It's a workshop for poetry and spoken word, and it's held here on the fourth Friday of every month. The next event is October 24th. It starts at 7 p.m. There's a couple of cool open mics around the area. On the third Thursday at 6:30, there's Lit by the Bridge with Paul Latour, and that's held at Culture Stack in Aurora. And that, Culture Stack is a little, well, not so little, but a bookstore right across the river from the Paramount down there on Galena Boulevard, and that's a nice time. He does an open mic, and he has a featured writer every night also. The very final, well, not final like forever, but the final for the season, Harmonious Howl, is this coming Thursday, October 23rd. That's run by Frank Rutledge. It's held at the Graham Street 18 out on the patio. And I think, if I saw the weather right in the paper today, it's going to be decent weather. If you perform, and performance is defined kind of loosely, I think I could get up and read an article from the Tribune, and that would count. You get a free coffee or gelato from Graham Street 18. Now, 2 of our local libraries are participating in National Novel Writing Month, which for those of you who write poetry is next month in November. So, you can go to a write-in at the Batavia Library starting at 9:30 until 1, and they're going to have some coffee and goodies and some other stuff. And then head over to the Geneva Library from 1 to 3. This is on November 1st. So right off the bat, you get to spend the entire day and get your novel off to a real roaring start. Okay? So, and there's a brochure on the counter about Geneva's National Novel Writing Month event. Anne's going to introduce the rest of the writers.
Hi. Our next writer is Angela Ogburn, and Angela is a freelance writer with publications in academia as well as literary anthologies. Holding a master's degree in psychology, her work explores how life's seemingly inconsequential moments lead to building a lasting collaged framework in the psyche. Angela Ogburn.
So what I have tonight for you guys, can you hear okay? That's all right. All right. I have 2 poems, a piece of flash fiction, and then I'm going to finish off with an excerpt from a young adult novel that I wrote last year. So I'm going to start off with the 2 poems. The first poem is called A Last Moment of Her. Sand and sable was cheap perfume my mother wore. It came in a foggy white bottle kept firmly in her purse. Ladies with purple-tinted hair, I found, often had that smell, doused thickly between their gray memories and the church pews where they left it lingering. I always thought it bitter, the way it smeared across my cheek and followed her fingers into my hair. But I found myself breathing it in when she was gone. Once at church, she wandered from her seat at the piano bench, and I swore if I were my little button-nosed kitten, I could have found her hiding place and not run all over church crying that she had left me. But she was funny like that, never forgetting to bring it along. And it's funny what the sterile smell of white walls and a dripping of the IV can bring and almost make one forget. And when he came in and told me it was time, I walked over and, kissing behind her ear, found it had tucked itself neatly there. The second... You guys are nice. The second piece, or the second poem, is called A Day Like June. A day like June, busy zinnias and yellow marigolds grew around us. I sat towards the sun, holding nothing and everything with my pen, while you kept the smell of green peppers, juicy pineapple, fresh zucchini, and chopped chicken against the warm breeze of charcoal. The music rose and fell against the sound of hose water, Kool-Aid being shaken, instructions about sweet and sour sauce. A Saturday we'd perfected. Maybe it was my pen that brought it on. I thought about those days that came before, the little parts of this green and black world we left bits of ourselves in. Gritty bars and ripped up sheets, early mornings. We thought it funny then, running into each other at the grocery store or along a crowded street. It's funny to remember when a smile didn't mean more than you were paying, or a song didn't say more than it said. And now a little apartment downtown, a deck with overgrown vines, and us having it all on a day like June. The next piece is a piece of flash fiction. It was published by Main Street Rag Publishing in one of their anthologies called Porches. The title is On the Porch, Not Talking About My Father. My legs, beaten up by blackberry thorns and dining ants, poke out like tree stumps across the hanging porch swing. My grandfather rolls up the heel of his foot towards his toe and back again. What do you see? He asks, his silver frames inching down his nose. Emerald froth bubbles on the surface of the pond, staining the white underbellies of ducks. The tip of a rowboat knocks against the pond's edge, its rusty sides powdering like cinnamon. Fish bubbles, I whisper, knowing this question, having learned this answer. His eyes widen and he scrunches his nose. Yellow teeth peek out as he mouths, yes. The fish, he says, looking across the olive-stained water. We can't always see what's there, can we? My head nods in a rehearsed moment. I remember our first practice of this, peppermint carnations spread across the casket's glossy birch. It disappeared into the hearse as we walked down the steps of the church. What do you see? My grandfather asked, his silver frames inching down his nose. My grandmother walked through a processional of Boy Scouts, my brother's fingers wrapped around her own. Women in black hats dotted the corners of their eyes and shook their heads. Cutting off the moment, my grandfather lifted my chin and painted the sky with his finger. We can't always see what's there, can we? What do you see? He asked. I searched the sky, seeing only the white clouds pushing through the blue backdrop. My father? I whispered. His calloused hand cupped my face as I leaned against him. This is the way we talk about my father, on the porch, not talking about him. But we don't always say what's said, do we? So it wasn't until after I submitted these to Anne that I realized I had two very heavy death themes. So, sorry. The next one is a lot lighter. So the next is from a young adult novel that I wrote last year, and it is right now called I Knew You Yesterday. So this is still towards the beginning of the novel, and what's happening is an 18-year-old girl has just been given the high school graduation present of going down to Georgia. She's from Chicago, and she goes down to Georgia to learn more about her father and her father's family. She's never met them, so. So here she is at the airport waiting for her father's sister to come pick her up. Cars moseyed along in the passenger pickup lane of the airport as drivers craned their necks looking for people. An older woman with dyed jet black hair stood next to me, showing her grandchildren a charm bracelet. Each one's birthstone dangled from it, all cut in the shape of a heart. I tried not to stare, but I couldn't help but watch her mouth as she talked. Her tongue rolled around in it like a pig in mud. Even though I'd seen nothing of Savannah but its airport, it was hard to imagine Mom growing up here in what she affectionately called the armpit of Georgia. She lived here until she was 25. Not that anyone could tell that from the way she talked. She was as good at getting rid of her accent as she was her past. But it's always made me wonder how many Southerners really had that thick as molasses twang. But if the airport is any microcosm, I have my answer. It's the norm, that's 2 syllables if Southern. A camouflaged truck with monster-sized tires roared past, burping exhaust and blaring country music. Right behind it, a black boxy pickup truck blasted around the corner. The brakes squealed as it jerked to a stop. A woman with a hairstyle screaming, "I'm still trapped in the 80s, sat behind the steering wheel. I stood up as she flung the squeaky door open. She marched around the hood of the car, then stopped dead in front of me, her hands on her hips. Her vacuum-sealed shirt read boy toy, and she wore cut-off denim shorts. Gold hoop earrings dangled from her ears, and her right ear was dotted all the way up with gold and diamond studs. Though I didn't agree with her fashion choices, her makeup was flawless. Her smoky gray eyeshadow blended perfectly into a shimmery white glow on her brow bone. Eyeliner matching the color of her eyelashes, no clump mascara, subtle rosy blush. It all looked perfect against her tan skin and sun-bleached hair. Of course, she showed her age, but what the wrinkles on her face gave away, her chiseled arms made up for. It was Debbie. "You Emily?" she asked. Swallowing hard, I stepped toward her and reached my hand out. "That's me," I said, my voice shakier than I'd expected. She grinned, and a line of her cherry red lipstick cut across the front of her teeth. "You look like your mama," she said, "but you got our James family nose." She winked, then did a double tap on the tip of my long, skinny nose. "Just look at you, all grown up." My hand still hung out limply for her. Finally taking it, she awkwardly tried to twirl me around. Not expecting this, my fingers slipped mid-turn and my feet got twisted around each other, but she didn't notice the clunky exchange. Stepping in close, she wrapped her arms around me. Her stale cigarette breath and the tart smell of chemicals from her hairspray filled my lungs. After what felt like a minute, she finally let go. Grabbing my shoulders, she positioned me into attention. "I'm Aunt Debbie," she said. "I know you haven't seen me since you were 3 years old, but I'm Aunt Debbie. Got it?" Tasting blood, I realized I was gnawing at the corner of my bottom lip. I slid my top lip over to try and cover it. With her hand still cupping the balls of my shoulders, she stared at me like she was waiting for an answer. I nodded, trying to remember if she'd asked me a question. "Are you as quiet as your mama?" she asked. I started to ask if she had Mom confused with someone, There was nothing quiet about my mother. If anything, she had a talking affliction, an allergy to shutting up. I guess, I said. Debbie swooped an arm around me and grabbed my suitcase. Her tricep bulging, she one-armed it easily into the bed of the truck. Although your daddy was like that too. I mean, hell, he was a librarian. My father, a librarian. I let it hang for a moment between us. You coming? Looking up, I saw Debbie sitting behind the steering wheel, patting the ripped-up passenger side seat. The truck purred as the engine rattled. I've always wanted to be a librarian, I said. She gnawed on the tips of her blue fingernails with her front teeth and tore off a tiny crescent moon-shaped end. After turning her head to spit it out the window, she smiled sweetly at me, like I was a child. Isn't this something, after all these years, she said, plopping her hands onto the steering wheel. Leaning back against the seat, she motioned for me to get in. Let's go, little librarian. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Our next reader is Dolores Becker. She was born and raised in Wisconsin and moved to Illinois after washing out as a music major. That was in 1988, and she still considers herself to just be visiting temporarily. Excuse me. She came to Batavia as a member of the Albright Theater and moved here in 1995 with her husband and child. Since then, she has had a second child, lost both her first child and her husband, and found her true calling at the public library. Her first professional sale, a short story called Everybody Knows Dimitri, was published in the only issue of Mountain Land magazine to see print and can be checked out from the Batavia Library. She also has a story in the Fox Tales 3 anthology produced by the Fox Valley Writers Group. Dolores Becker.
Thank you. And thanks to Ann and Kevin and Brandon and everybody who makes these events happen. It takes a lot of work to pull something like this off, and your efforts are really appreciated. I'm going to read 3 poems for you tonight. The first one is called Where You Find It. At the grocery store, in the checkout line, I found a peach, sitting there in the snack rack in front of the little bags of potato chips like a deliberate counterpoint, a willful act of defiance, a message, or not, more likely a random, thoughtless act, a mind changed at the last minute, or a pretty bauble surreptitiously snagged by a child and discovered by a parent as they unloaded the cart onto the belt and unwanted and abandoned. I mean, who has 1 peach in their shopping cart? Or suddenly decides they have 1 peach too many? Or maybe it went the other way. Mom or dad has a bag of peaches and the child removes one and leaves it there. I almost leave it there myself, but who knows how long it will sit there. A cloud of fruit flies swarms in my mind, and I pick it up. Besides, I am amused by this discovery, the momentary diversion of how did that get there? I will give it to the cashier, who will arrange for it to be put back where it belongs. What in the world feels like a peach? They call it velvety, but that's not right. Velvet is deep. You can dig your fingertips into it. Velvet is heavy. The skin of a peach is delicate, the texture so fine that if it were any finer, we would not be able to feel it. It is the very beginning, the least perceptible degree of softness. How can anyone touch a peach and not caress it? The line moves up, the person in front of me is having her turn, and I bring the peach up to my face. I'm not fooling anyone. This peach is coming with me. I touch that perfect softness with the end of my nose and inhale. If there is anything more pleasurable than the feel of a peach, it is the smell of a peach. This is the fragrance of paradise. If everybody just stopped and smelled a peach whenever they started to lose their cool, we might have a shot at world peace. World peach, marvelous, sensuous globe. Well, close enough for poetry. I hold on to the peach as I hoist my bags back into the cart and bite into it as I roll towards the door. And I am rewarded for my rescue of this one lonesome organic peach abandoned in the chip rack with a treasure greater than gold. It is exactly as ripe as it should be. Not quite far enough along to make a mess, not one that you have to eat leaning over the sink and laughing like a kid at the glorious sloppiness of it, but ripe enough, just ripe enough. If I were as bold as I once was, or had a like-minded companion with me, I might stop right there in the middle of the supermarket and throw back my head and moan, but I walk quietly, pushing my cart with one hand and eating my perfect peach with the other, and feeling my smile spread inward. My tongue can speak no anger, no insult, nothing foul or hurtful, as long as I can still taste the flavor of that peach. The next one is called February Pedicure. My daughter and I went for pedicures yesterday. It was her sister's birthday. She would be 24, except she didn't make it through 16. We give ourselves a treat on her birthday. Under the vigorous rasp, dead skin fell off my feet like the snow piled up outside, and I wonder if I can afford to pay someone to do this for me every time I need my toenails trimmed. It is February. No one will see my painted toes for months, no one but me. But I will see their color and think of her, and I will know it is there, buried inside socks and boots, and smile. And the last one is called September Melancholy. It is September, and I can feel the melancholy gathering around the edges of my mind, accumulating in wisps and layers, like cotton candy clinging to its cardboard core, like cobwebs collecting in the corners, like fog dribbling in through the cracks in a scary movie, like the chill coming on as the sun goes down, like the shadows slowly growing as the fire dies, and like none of these at all, like nothing I can imagine or describe. I can sit here making metaphors and slinging similes all day long, and they mean nothing. Just brain games, mental exercise, something to do to keep the actual feeling at bay by pretending it resembles something that can be captured in words. Words can be medicine, process, release. Sometimes finding the words and stringing them together helps me to heal, to come to terms, to understand. Other times they're just a dodge, a distraction, a way of pretending to be dealing with it while avoiding dealing with it. Art is a double-edged sword. Sometimes the only thing that maintains precarious sanity. Other times the ultimate self-indulgence, an excuse to fling in the face of reality. But I digress, which should be on my headstone, if I have a headstone. Autumn is my favorite time of year. I welcome the end of summer, and I do not dread the coming of winter. Autumn is ideal. I came into this world in October, as did one of my children, but the other one, the one who arrived in miserable February, she left us in October, shuffled off this mortal coil, as Hamlet would have it, and found what dreams may come. So when September arrives, bringing the promise of sweet relief from summer's discomforts, it brings the creeping, seeping, ever-deepening, rarely weeping, restless sleeping, vigil-keeping melancholy. Autumn is still my favorite time of year. Strange as that may seem, I do not love the autumn any less for what happened on one day in October, but I surely do not enjoy it the way I used to. I don't enjoy anything the way I used to. Some things happen after which nothing is the same, which is not to say I don't enjoy anything at all, or even that I don't enjoy anything as much as I used to. Indeed, I surely enjoy some things more, take fewer things for granted, appreciate the things I have, and accept the truth of impermanence in a way that is far more real than it used to be. It is different, that's all. I don't know any other way to describe it. I, who have always found refuge in words, made them my primary weapon in all life's battles and universal multi-purpose tool for every situation. The only trick up my sleeve has been the arm equipped with pen in hand, my all-purpose solution to everything. Throw words at it until it's better. I am disarmed, bereft, helpless, and utterly undone. No words can touch it, define it, describe it, or mitigate it. But it is not all that there is. It does not eclipse and occlude the rest of the world, not anymore. There was a time when it was joy that was relegated to the fringe, when pleasure was the lurking shadow, that encroached upon my life by infinitesimal degrees. I will never again suffer what I suffered then. I can suffer this, as I have suffered it year after year since that morning in October, after which nothing would ever be the same. And so I embrace the onset of autumn, even knowing what lies ahead, the rough patch that must be gotten through. But life is full of rough patches, some rougher than others, and this one, at least, is well marked. I know full well where it is. I never know how long it will be, but I know it will end, and begin again, and end again. And sometimes it will not be well marked and just appear on any random day, and sometimes it will not be there where it is expected, on her birthday perhaps. But whenever it begins, I know it will also end, and when it ends, I know it will return. The first noble truth is suffering, but it isn't the last. The sun is shining, the leaves are turning, the apples are ripening. It is September, and I can feel it coming on. I don't know if it will just hover around me for a bit, almost like a dance, and flit away, or if it will wrap itself around me like a cloak. But either way, it will come and it will go, like the sunshine and the leaves and the apples and the autumn and all that is. Thank you.
And that's why we do this. This beautiful bird. We have Don Bingle here again tonight. He's been here a couple of times with us, and we always enjoy what he brings to the Waterline writers. Don Bingle has written 3 novels, a couple novellas, about 50 pieces of short fiction in the science fiction, horror, fantasy, thriller, steampunk, mystery, romance, and comedy genres. He is currently running a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter for Frame Shop, a mystery thriller novella set in a writer's group and punctuated by violence, humor, and occasional writing advice. Early participants can still get a free copy of 4 bonus stories, including Seasons Critiquings and Someday, both of which Don read at past events here at Waterline. Seasons Critiquings might have been a favorite of many people who were here that night. You can still see it on our video library. In fact, you can see all 180 videos of the different readings that we've had in the past 2.5 years at waterlinewriters.org. More on Don and his writing available at donaldjbingle.com. Don, come on up.
Thank you. Hi there, I'm Don Bingle, and Ann was nice enough to let me tell you a little bit about the Kickstarter for my novella Frame Shop, which is a mystery thriller set in a writer's group and punctuated by violence, humor, and occasional writing advice. Kickstarters are used by artists, writers, musicians, inventors, manufacturers, and retailers to raise money and market awareness for new and innovative projects. Sure, authors don't have the same type of capital costs as musicians cutting a record or inventors needing to buy raw materials, but they do need to build awareness and market themselves and their work. My experience as a story author in anthologies that have been kickstarted shows this is a great way to make self-publishing actually pay. Please be sure to pick up one of my cards, which will give you a shortened URL on the back so that you can go directly to my project on your computer or your smartphone. You simply go to the site, learn about the project, pick what rewards you want for pledging, starting as low as $5, then check out using Amazon's payment system. Happy to explain more about the project and how Kickstarter works to anyone who has any questions afterwards. Not surprisingly, I'm reading a scene from Frame Shop tonight. I believe that dialogue defines characters and picked this scene to show that. You may not like what these characters say, but knowing their views, not mine, helps establish who they are. To set up the scene, you only need to know that Guy, a hitman, has been working with a hack writer he calls Sweater Vest, who plots out Guy's hits in order to frame others for Guy's murders. During one of their meets, Guy finds out that Sweater Vest has attended the funeral of one of Guy's victims. "You did what?" Guy yelled without thinking. He dialed down his continuing remarks to a barely restrained, low-rolling thunder. "Are you a friggin' moron?" When Sweater Vest didn't immediately respond, he continued on. "You never, ever in a million years go to the funeral of a target. You understand?" If he'd had a .22 in his hand, he might have offed Sweater Vest on the spot. Maybe even if he'd had a knife, like the one in that movie. It would be easy to gut the unsuspecting suburbanite moron on the spot, sit his body down on a park bench, and move on with his day and his life. Except he didn't have a knife on him at the moment. That was probably a good thing, because if he started stabbing this idiot, he wasn't sure he would be able to stop. Most crimes of passion probably had nothing to do with love or lust or sex, but they probably had plenty to do with someone being an idiot when someone else had a weapon in their hand. Sweater Vest's clueless, dumb stare finally resolved itself into a look of bewildered insult. I was just following through on the assignment. Guy grabbed Sweater Vest's shoulder and leaned in to talk to him nose to nose, not caring if a little spittle sprayed forth as he punctuated each word for emphasis. "There is no follow-through on murder." Guy closed his eyes for a moment and shook his head in disbelief. "Once the hit is dead, you're through. Get it? Dead means done." "Well, for you, sure." Sweater Vest rolled his eyes. He rolled his friggin' eyes at Guy. But for a writer to assess the effectiveness of his work, he has to see how the public reacts. He has to gauge whether they found the world he created not only credible, but compelling. In this instance, I wanted to see if the sister looked more frightened than sad, whether the target's family looked at the sister with accusation in their eyes, whether members of the community were less than wholehearted in their expressions of sorrow, whether the police, Guy actually felt his blood pressure skyrocket from its already elevated level. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, the police were there? What if they'd asked why you were there? Sweater Vest made a face and scratched his cheek while he thought for a second, but Guy didn't have the patience for the wordsmith to work through his transitory writer's block. Holy Mother of God, tell me they weren't taking pictures of the mourners. Tell me they weren't taking down license plate numbers of all the cars at the cemetery. Tell me you didn't do something so stupid that it's going to get you questioned or caught. Sweater Vest wrinkled his brow, as if he were replaying the funeral scene in his head. "I don't remember seeing anyone with a camera." Guy clenched and unclenched his fists. "See anyone with a phone? Because that's all you need these days. A phone and a leisurely turn to take a panoramic shot of everyone everywhere. They can blow up the picture later and get all the details they need." "Oh, I guess that's true. But I don't recall anyone doing anything like that. I mean, not anything obvious. What if they figure out who you are and that you have no connection whatsoever to the deceased? What if they come to your door and want answers?" "Well," Sweater Vest temporized, "I guess I'd just tell them." Guy interrupted. "And don't say you just tell them that you read about the murder in the paper and wanted to express your condolences. Nobody crashes graveside services. They crash weddings and wakes, because that's where the free booze is. Besides, I may not know you all that well, but even I can tell that you're not the kind of guy who has a reputation for spontaneous expressions of sympathy to random strangers. If this was a Lifetime movie, you'd get cast as the creepy dude who spends too much time watching kids in the park." Guy could see Sweater Vest's blood pressure was rising too. The fellow's face was flushing red, and his jaw was clenched tight for a few moments before he responded. "There's no need to be insulting. I have a perfectly good reason to give should anyone ask me why I was at the funeral. It's the same reason I can give for being anywhere, anytime, watching anything from bums urinating on the subway platform to young women walking by in thin summer dresses. I'm a writer. My job is to observe things, notice them, experience them, memorize them, and keep them in my mind's eye for later use. Everything, everywhere is grist for my mill, and I grind my flour into a soft, smooth, silky silt. Characters, settings, emotions, storylines, places, things, clothing, arcane bits of description and poetry. A writer has an excuse for knowing everything from nuclear weapon yields to whether college girls typically wear thongs to avoid panty lines on their tight jeans when they're attending a kegger at the local frat. I can go anywhere on the excuse of gathering information. I can ask questions about a building security system or untraceable poisons or what knots are best used in S&M bondage sessions without blinking because I can always say it's research for a book. I don't even have to produce the book. I can always say I haven't written it yet. Jesus, the kid was really wound tight. I'm a writer. I have the perfect excuse for anything. If I say something stupid or offensive or racist, I don't have to apologize because I can say I did it to gauge reaction, to make a scene or a bit of dialogue more realistic. If I want to take a needlepoint class, I don't have to be embarrassed because I can say it's for a project I'm working on. If I want to loiter around a shop that sells sex toys or ask the local biker gang about their preferences in automatic weapons or purchase a battle axe, I can say it's for a book. Heck, I can even deduct it from my taxes. Look, people may not like writers, they may not respect them or pay them well, but they understand that writers are strange people who do strange things all the time. They tolerate them, like kids with Down syndrome. They may not want to be around them, and they may thank God they don't have one of them in the family, but they understand they can't help what they are. And if you don't make eye contact or aggravate them too much, they'll wander off and be weird somewhere else real soon. Sweater Vest paused for a moment before continuing, his voice calmer. Listen, you don't need to worry about my end. I don't worry about yours. We're both professionals here. Just keep in mind that should someone stumble across our friendship, I have a perfectly credible reason for talking to you. What's your reason for talking to me? Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Very rousing. Okay, our next event is November 16th, Sunday at 7 p.m. as always. I'd like to thank everyone who participated in our main event tonight. Thanks to our writers, Dolores Becker, Mr. Dan Bingle, Jennifer DeBose, Angela Ogburn, Jerry Suter, and Bruce Steinberg. Film stars, Erica Denker, Randy Martin, and Danute Duca-Vienne. Close. Thanks to our volunteers, Mary McHugh, Frank Rutledge, Barbara Barrows, Nick Markavicius, Ginny Kletzspitz, Paula Garrett. Thanks to Water Street Studios for letting us use this beautiful space. And most of all, thanks to all of you. We really do appreciate you attending. Thanks a lot.